don't forget to like and subscribe.
Hello there. Singham. And yeah, I enjoy this movie. I had fun watching it. It is entertaining. It's basically a cop from nowhere being transferred to a big town and has to take down a big boss. A big politician who's literally killed his way to the top. And yeah, one thing that I'm starting to see as a pattern, and is actually, I think, starting to get to me, is in a lot of the Indian movies, there is suicide as seen, because here the officer in the beginning, he's basically bullied by this politician to committing suicide. They lie about him. They basically, yeah, and then he commits suicide to protect his family's honor. And I'm like, I think that seems a little backwards. I don't think suicide should. I'm kind of against the whole concept of suicide, ending your life, because I mean, it just seems off. It just doesn't work for me. However, it seems to always be justified in movies I watch, because it's about protecting your honor, your family's honor. It's about, well, you failed and it's just, you're never gonna mount up to anything. It's just like, it bothers me because it shouldn't have gotten, why it seems like it's a thing to where it kind of like the whole, in Japan it was seppuku. I think it's still a thing too in Japan, where for failure as well, very common. I don't know. It has to do with honor, and this movie isn't about that, but I'm starting to realize that a lot, and I think it's sending the wrong message to people watching the movies, because it's basically telling people that that's acceptable, and that should not be acceptable. That's the one thing I'm just going to say. The whole suicide aspect of that should not be acceptable. Not at all. It's just, yeah. So basically this movie is about an officer who is completely by the book, who gets transferred to the city, the main city, where this politician is completely corrupt and willing to do dirty tricks. And the officer basically starts doing dirty tricks himself. And I did enjoy that. That was absolutely entertaining to watch, because if the system's broken and nobody's going to work with you, you have to take the law into your own hands. As bad as that sounds, but you've got to do, I mean, it's just, it's always fun seeing these law-abiding citizens having to take the law into their own hands, because let's face it, the justice system is broken. No matter where you are in the world, you can get out of really anything. And I know in the US court system, it's the stories you tell which basically dictate the victor. I mean, that's not always right, but at the same time, it is, because the evidence that's there can always be told from a different perspective. So it's about the storytelling, the story. In other countries, you can buy people off. I mean, you can buy a verdict. So it's just like, I mean, I'm sure you can do that here in the States too. So it's just like, justice, the system is all broken, completely broken, and it's always nice to see a movie where it's so broken that he's willing to just go out on a limb and basically start being corrupt himself, but for the right reasons, if that makes sense. Yeah, and I enjoyed watching that. I gotta say though, the whole suicide aspect in the beginning, I'm starting to say that that's a no. That should never be an escape. I've seen it way too many movies, especially in Indian cinema. I've seen it way too often, and that shouldn't be a thing. That should not be a thing. If anything, that officer should have gone to prison. They should have had him constantly preach his innocence. They should have, because it just seems wrong to tell people that this is acceptable. It's acceptable if you are wronged, and in order to protect your honor, to commit suicide. That just, as you can see, I found the one thing that bothered me in this movie. Even though I absolutely love the film, that bothered me. Suicide should never be an acceptable outcome. Is that just me? Am I just reading into it? Do you think it made a good film beat? Do you think it really did? I feel like it just threw me out. It made me start to realize certain things, because I'm trying to think of movies that have suicide that actually serve a purpose. I mean, it doesn't really add anything to the story. Ugh. Except the grieving mother. Honestly, you could have had him in prison and had the mother do the same thing. Oh, I gotta say though, the son of the detective who committed suicide. That kid cannot act. In every scene, he looks exactly the same. It was completely hilarious. Because every time that kid popped up on screen, no matter how far he was to the camera, I noticed him. And it made me notice editing issues. It made me notice, just little, because the first time they show him, the mother's like in the front, and the mother's begging for something, and the son is far back in the van. And you can pick him off easily, like far back in the van. Deadpan face. No emotion. Not knowing why he's there. and then they have him in the far back, and he's easily to spot because he's just he can't act. Once people can't act, they're far more noticeable on set than people who can act. It's just. So I noticed him immediately, even though he was like this little thing in the background, and I noticed him. And then they show him in the next scene, just as if he was back there, and then he's in someone's arms, and I was like, okay. I rewind, and I was like, this is the what's it called? What is it called? Editing error? Not crap. Yeah, but I noticed it immediately, and I rewind. I was like, look at this, and I noticed it just because that kid, and the kid, even though it's a different scene, even though they obviously shot this one at a different time, because now he's in like an officer's arms, as an officer has his hands on the kid's shoulders. The kid looks exactly the same. It literally looks like he's a cardboard cutout that was picked up out of the van and set in another shot. So that is completely hilarious. Honestly, if you haven't seen this movie, I would say watch this movie just to keep an eye on that chubby kid, because it is entertaining how his face does not change throughout the entire movie, no matter what's going on. Oh, yeah. See, I found something enjoyable to talk about. Other than that suicide. So, yeah, Singham, definitely a recommend, just for that chubby kid. Just for the freaking deadpan expression, even when his father dies, even though his father's liberated, even though whatever's going on, deadpan expression doesn't care. Thank you all for watching. Talk to you next time. Doodles!